Hi, I'm Holly Pike. If you'd like a trial of the Generation software that I use for digitizing, please visit trygenerations.com. This video is a recording of a live video I did for my previous students. You may hear references to You Can Digitize or YCD. That's my old website that is now closed. My new website is digitizingschool.com. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. I'm going to keep this in about the 5x7 size, just for sake of being able to work with it. I'm going to hold my shift key down and press the plus key so that the artwork gets darker, and I can do that because these 8 resize boxes are highlighted and turned on. Okay, so we could do this design just as all satin stitch if we wanted to. Could all be satin stitch. I personally think that might be a little bit boring. So I would prefer to do it with a couple of different things going on and create some texture with it and some interest with it. Would the design be good done all satin stitch? Yes, provided the satin stitches are done well. Would the design be good using all line tool? Yes, provided it was carefully placed and it was all done well. Would it maybe be better with some texture? Maybe. So we're going to find out. We're going to find out what texture will do for this design. And by texture, I mean I might use, excuse me, some satin. I might use some lines. I might use some fill. I might use some light density. I might do some other things with a satin stitch. I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll just kind of, wing it and see where we go. I darken the artwork by when the artwork comes in, it comes in with the 8 resizing boxes already highlighted. So it comes in like this with the 8 resize boxes. What I did was, while it was selected, I held the shift key and pressed the plus key until it darkened up the way I wanted it. Diane, you're working on this set right now? Okay, cool. So that answers your question, Carol. Okay, very good. We'll go up to 400. Well, first, let's take a look at this first. Let's kind of take a look at this. We have some things that are behind other things, so we do need to take some care with that. So this green, the green is behind the wine glass, except for right here, it's on top of the wine glass. So we need to be aware of that. We need to take some care with that when we're doing it. This label needs to come before this part of the bottle because it needs to look like it's tucked underneath that bottle. The cork needs to come before this part, that wrapper part. The green needs to come after the wine bottle, but before the grapes, because green is under the grapes. And that's going to be okay, because if we do our green here, that's not going to interfere with putting in the wine bottle color at all. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, and I may change my mind and we can move things around. I'm going to start with the cork. And for that, I'm going to just start my pen, and I'm going to hit a B for blue. I'm going to start with the cork, I think, and I could change my mind. And then I'm going to do the label. And then I think I'll do the wine bottle. And then this. Then the green. Again, I could change my mind because nothing is carved in stone. We can change everything. And then I can do, I think I'll do the grapes and then the wine glass last. I could change my mind. And as I'm working on this, it may not happen just the way I laid it out. But what you need to do is you need to print your artwork out. If you're new with me, you're going to hear me say several things over and over and over. And one is print your artwork out, get some pencils. They don't have to be colored pencils, but get some pencils and start planning what you want to do. Even if you want to go so far as I'm going to do this first, and I'm going to start here and go that way. So this is going to be my in. You can do this. You can plan for this. Okay, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in here and go this way. Okay, then I'm going to go in here and go this way. You can plan it out specifically with where you're going in and where you're going out, what your densities are going to be. You can say this is going to be lines, this is going to be lines, this is going to be satin, this is going to be fit. You can plan it out that far, and you can plan out the colors if you want, if you're really into planning and doing all those steps. And it's going to take some time, but you'll get used to it after a while, and you'll be very, very quick, and you won't need to print it out after about, I don't know, 400 or 500 designs. You won't have to print it out anymore. And you're probably going, 400 or 500 designs? Are you kidding me? No, that's about what it takes. Okay, so we're going to start up here with the cork. And I'm going to go and find the color that I want for my cork. And I think it's going to be this one right here. I'll go up to 400. And I am going to do lines for this, so I'm going to take my line tool, and I'm going to start right here. But I want to start so that it's overlapping this black just a little bit. And I'm going to use more than one. Well, I was going to use more than one. More than one pass of the line tool. Keep it close together. Keep it the width of your cursor. Like that. So that creates the cork, but it's not satin. And that's okay. It's a little bit of texture of some type. Now we're going to come down here, make sure that you escape and you right click to deselect everything. And let's go over and select a color we like for the label. And I think maybe it'll be that. And here's a choice. I could do satin here, which might not be a bad idea. And then just use lines here because it's more detailed and satin is harder to get looking that way. So let's go ahead and use satin. Start here. You could use your side-by-side tool if you'd like. And if there's anyone here that doesn't know how to use the side-by-side tool, speak up and I'll show you how to do that after I do this. Okay, so there's our satin. Okay, let me show you how to use the side-by-side satin tool. I just use the side-to-side. Side-to-side satin tool goes this way. If you have a satin column, it goes this way, then that way. You go back and forth like this. So you're making like a ladder. So you're going left, right, and it's making your stitch angle. That's what your side-to-side satin tool looks like. Your side-by-side satin tool is a little different. If you have a satin column that you want to do, you're going to do your first side as if you were doing a line, and I'm going to show this to you. Then you're going to come up and use your second line here, coming straight down. Over here, you're going to hit enter, and over here, you're going to hit enter. Then you're going to take your line angle tool. I'll show you how to use it, and you're going to draw your angles in. Just like that. And then you're going to hit enter. And it's going to make a satin just like that. Okay? So let's do it. Let's do it. Let's take this over here and move it over there. I'm going to take this tool now. I'm going to start here, and now it's just like I'm making a line, just one side. You make one side at a time, but it acts just like a satin. When you get here, you're going to hit Enter. Okay, now your cursor is loose. You're going to come over here. Always go back to the same place you started. Keep the same direction. If you go the opposite direction, you're going to have a mess. Okay, let's go back and do that again because my Enter put my angles in. I didn't want that to happen. I use the side-by-side satin tool when I have a very odd shape to do a satin, because sometimes the satin is hard to control for a weird shape. So that's usually when I use it. Now you're going to hit Enter. And notice my cursor is loose again. At this point, I'm just going to drag my angle lines across and gradually start moving them so that they turn. The more gradually you make these turns, the smoother they will be. When I get there, I'm just going to hit Enter, and it's going to create for me my satin. Now let's compare them. They look pretty close, except for the shape here. I did the shape a little different. But they look pretty good. And you can edit them. I can edit my angles on this one. I can change this and make the angles a little cleaner if I want to. I can change the angles on this one. Same thing. I can add angles. If I right-click, I can add a stitch direction guideline. When I'm done, Enter, and we're good. So that's how to do both of them. I'm going to take this one and delete it because I think this one's prettier, and I'm going to put it back here. Okay. Now, on top of this satin line, I'm going to take my line tool, and I'm going to go right down the center. You see where it's really bright right in the center? Staying right in the center, that's the crest of the satin. I'm going to put this line right down the center of my satin. What that's going to do when it stitches out, it's going to give it a little texture, and it's going to look different than just a traditional satin line. But I do have one thing I want to change. If I came in here and out here, for my line, I came in here, but I also want to come out down here because now I want to put this in. I could come out at the top and travel down, but why travel that big long distance if I don't have to? The only advantage to doing that, the only advantage to coming out up here is now I have just a single pass. If I come out here, it's going to come up and then pass down. So, in the interest of good digitizing, let's go ahead and put the travel stitch in. I'm going to take my line tool and start right here. I'm going to come right down this center area. Like that. I'm going to change it to a single run because I don't want it to be a heavy line. Take my line tool again. Okay, these two I'm going to merge because they are touching. Notice they turn gray. They are touching, but I will not merge it with the travel stitch because the travel stitch is a single run. This is a triple run. You cannot merge a single to a triple and get a single and a triple. You will get a triple. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're working on a project. Okay, So as I said, I did that and this. Now let's go up here and do no, we're not going to do the wrapper next. We're going to do the wine bottle next because the wrapper's underneath the wine bottle. So let's find a pretty burgundy red or color bottle that we want. How about this one? I like that. And the choice now is, do we do satin here or do we do multiple lines? I think I'm going to do a satin because it's wide enough to look pretty as a satin. That's what I think I'm going to do. So my out is going to be over here. So my in is going to be right here. I'm going to use this satin. When you're doing a turn, a corner, watch your stitch angles. Make sure right here that this is overlapping or you're going to get gaposis. We don't need gaposis in the digitizing. Notice that my satin stitch is going to cover my travel stitch without an issue. If you can cover a travel, travel. If you can't, a jump is okay. Just remember, left, right, just like you were marching. Okay, see if there's any questions. Why do you have to put in a travel stitch? Why can't you just start at the bottom? Here, you mean? When I put that line in, why can't I just start at the bottom? I could pull the out down here, and then there's just going to be a little tiny travel I have to put in. Travel stitch just hides. A travel stitch makes it so that you don't have a lot of jumps to cut and a lot of knots in your designs. It's good digitizing to use travel stitches when you can. When you can. I'm not going to say use them all the time. It's a good digitizing to use them when you can and when it makes sense. If you do the multiple pass lines on the bottle, your stitches probably will not show if you're careful putting them in. And if I was going to do that, that's a really great question. Let me move this. And if I was going to do that, if I was going to use the multiple pass, then this I would have changed. I would have put it close to the edge, and one of my multiple passes would be right on top of that line. Okay, so I would have done something like this. And I'd be right on top of that line. I'm just going to come back now. I'm not going to go all the way up. No. Yes, I will. Right on top. Right on top of that thread. If you're very careful, more careful than I'm being right now, putting in your multiple passes, you can hide that single run without an issue. Because remember, what I put in here as a travel is a single run. It's going to be very flat. It's going to be very fine. It's just the thickness of one piece of thread. These are triple runs, so they're thicker because you're getting that 2 forward, 1 back, 2 forward, 1 back to get that triple coverage. So if you're very careful how you put it in, you can definitely hide that travel stitch without a problem. I got to move that back. Now we're back. Okay. Now I could put that line on top of the wine bottle, but I'm not going to because I already did it here, and to do it again just seems like I'm just trying to use that technique, when really I'm not. I'm just trying to create some texture. Okay, so let's go up and put the wrapper on. We'll go over here and take black, and I'm going to use my area tool and put this in. Now remember, I'm trying to create texture. So this is not going to be a solid piece. But what you can see is I've got a little hangover on the edges. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to go into Edit, and I'm going to pull those edges in a little bit. Okay, better. All right, so we have our stitch angle. And now I'm going to change my density down here to about 0.8. Hit my space bar and remove the underlay. And that's still not enough. Still not enough. And this is trial and error, trying to get that look that you're looking for. I'm going to turn off my artwork so I can see what I've got. Okay, and now I am going to go back into my spacebar under Complex Fill and use Smooth Edges because I want to have the feel of an edge on here. Does that make sense? I want to have the feel of an edge. So now you can see that that's, kind of developing some texture. And since the rest of this design is open, I don't want to put a real solid, chunky thing on there. Because when you would open the design, you would look and all you would see is this wrapper, or all you would see is the wine in the wine bottle. So I kind of want to keep a feel to what I'm doing with the design. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. You can even open the density up a little more if you want. I kind of like the 1.5. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, I think, is the green. And the green is probably going to be a combination of either a combination of satin and lines or a couple different colors to give it some texture and some interest. So let's just kind of look at what our options are. I'm going to choose this green here and the line tool. I'm going to start right there. I'm going to stop right there. The reason I'm stopping right there is I don't want to cross over a line. I've had this a lot with the quick starts. If you have something that does this, when you do your line, you're going to start and come to here and stop. Then you're going to start here with an overlap and finish that. The reason is this connection right here, if you just come around and do this and cross here, you're going to get a funny little thing that does that or that, depending on which side you cross on. And then you're just going to really have a tough time cleaning that up and making that go away. So the best way I can teach you to do that is by, if you have something that does this, you're going to start and come around to where it meets. Stop and then overlap and bring this over and merge them. And you have a very, very clean connection for your for what you're doing. So I stopped right there, and I'm going to overlap here. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to stop right on the line. Okay, so now I have 3 pieces. I'll select those 3 pieces, the outline icon, right click and merge. Now I have my little swirly thing. Okay, so let's do the next one. I'm going to do satin for this one. I start with, hopefully you can see that, I start with 2 satins close together, kind of to make a rounded edge, and then I go out from there. Remember that satins always end up looking bigger than you make them. And by that, you can see I'm making mine a little more narrow than the artwork, because I happen to know that these are going to look pretty chunky when we get done, just from experience. And then keep the last 2 kind of close together. And I like that it's not the real thick and real heavy satin. I just prefer that. It's it's just something that I prefer. I'm going to go back to my line tool here. I'm going to do this one with the line tool because I want you to see what I do with a wider area and the multiple pass line tool, John's technique. Now, if I were really doing this for the purpose of releasing on the website, I'd be going much slower and much more carefully, because you want to make sure that you get these lined up so there's no gaposis happening in this area. Okay, and I'm going to come right to here. Come back. I know it's kind of hard to see on the green. To there. You can see I'm just coming back and forth, working this area until I'm happy with it. Now we have different textures happening as we go along. I kind of like that. I also kind of like maybe changing this one to a darker green. So make the satins darker green and make the line tools a lighter green. You can have more jump stitches, but that's okay. Sometimes we have to sacrifice for the sake of beauty. You could do them all satin if you like. You could do them all lines if you like. You could just do them all single lines if you like. There's no hard and fast rule to what you have to do. It's all kind of, what you like. And my team will tell you, I see everything. These guys come up with some really great stuff. And sometimes the more you play, the cooler and the more creative it looks. Oops. Hey, anybody on the team ever find that their right click stops right clicking and just starts left clicking with their Cintiq? It's something that's been happening to me a lot. I'm just trying to cover up that edge now. Okay, so we have some okay, so over here you can see I've got 2 different greens. So now I need to put these greens together so that we're not going, dark green, light green, dark green, light green. That would be really, really, really bad as far as a customer is concerned. Okay, I was just kind of thinking about how I wanted to do this. this one's kind of easy from the standpoint of these things aren't touching. So it's pretty easy to put these lines in. If they were touching, you would have to make sure that these edges here are tucked underneath that wine glass. But they're not touching, and it's Art Deco-ish, so we're just going to let that be, you know, kind of Art Deco-y. I guess that's the name for it. I don't know. This is really the kind of design I enjoy doing because you can have a little bit of fun with it, but it still looks really kind of cool when you're done with it. And again, I would be being much, much more careful and lining everything up. You can see those lines should be just about the width of your cursor when it changes into that little spiky tool. We've found that tends to, you know, just give us the best result. John has kind of played with this and researched it and figured out what we need to do to make that nice and solid looking. And you don't want to overlap them, because if you overlap them, then you get, you know, a lot of weird stuff happening. Okay, so I'm going to save this real quick. And I'm going to save it to here. It's going to be wine bottle. This is embroidering colors. Okay. All right, so now we save that. Any questions? For the wrapper up here, I just used the fill tool, the standard fill tool, and just lightened up the density. That's all I did. Multiple passes of the line tool, are you using single run or triple? I'm using a triple. I would throw it out to the team and say, hey, guys, you guys usually use triple, double. I never use single. Never, never, never. The only time I use single run is for travel stitches. I just don't like how it looks, so I don't use it. I'll use a double run if something is, I did a set of horses with a lot of mane, and I did use some double runs in there, but mostly I use triples. John says triple. Carol says no, hers doesn't it. That happens to me once in a while, and I just stop and start again. Usually, yeah, I just back up one or two, I think, and it works. Yes, Tammy, that will work just fine. Maria uses triple also. Okay, so we're all kind of the same mind. Okay, let's put the grapes in and the wine. And you're going to see that I'm not going to make this exactly like the artwork because I think the artwork looks messy. So there you have that. I'm going to kind of make it look a little better. And I'm going to use maroon. I just went up there to check my color. I want to use something different than maroon because that's the color of the bottle. So let's use cranberry. How about that? And this is going to take a little time, but we're just going to make some circles. They do not have to be perfect circles. In fact, it's probably better if they are not perfect circles. Because they're grapes. And grapes are not perfect circles. I know it's kind of hard to see underneath here, but I'll show you in a minute. I'm just using the area that they gave me for grapes and just kind of, having a little fun with it. Try not to take it too seriously. I know it's kind of silly for me to say to you guys, try not to take it too seriously, because those of you that know me know I pretty much take everything seriously. But try not to get too tied up in it being too perfect, especially when you're starting. It's really more important to just get lots of techniques under your belt and just get a lot of techniques, so that you're comfortable with them. Time for perfection will come. I'm going to select them all and merge. Now when I turn off my artwork, there's my grapes. But I see I need to make a little adjustment right here. Because in the artwork, those aren't supposed to touch. And I'm going to move that little dude out a little bit. Right there, that'll work. So you can see how my grapes and this was not touching in the artwork, so that's okay. I'm not worried about that touching. Now we'll do the wine, and we're going to use the same technique as the cork, or as the wrapper. I'm going to use my area tool. Okay, but let's make this into an arc, because I think it'll be cool to have the wine kind of have some movement in there. And let's change the density and see what happens. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to turn off the underlay and we're going to see what happens. If you move your ins and outs opposite one another, a lot of times you can get rid of that weird little line on the edge. I think I'm good with that. You could play with it forever, literally. So try not to get too tied up. When I turn off the artwork, you see what we've got? Kind of cool. Now we just have the wine glass. And the wine glass, I think, what should we do with the wine glass? Let's do the stem. With lines. Let's see if we can merge these. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Nope. See that right there? Not going to like it. So let's make sure that our ins and outs work where we want them to work. And I kind of like putting a point on mine when I'm doing a curve like this, using a left click there. You can go out and make it flat by going over and making it flat. But I kind of like the point. I think it just kind of lays nicer. Okay, now let's grab this tool. Just make sure you catch those edges. Take my line tool, just put that in there. And there you have it. So you could do this a bunch of different ways. You could completely do it in lines. You could do it all in satin. That would be fine. You could do it applique. That would be fine. All different ways that you could do that. Would you use smooth edges for the wine? I did use smooth edges for the wine. Thanks, Deb. I'm going to save it. And Diane, you said you had this set already? Okay. Thanks, Donnie. So if you see up here where I've got a gap, this is why you have to be very careful. I just noticed that. You don't want to have, where's my navigator? You don't want to have gaps like this in your multiple pass line work. And that happens by going too fast, not paying attention. So I'm just going to select it. And see all those gaps? Now is when you have to go back and you have to fix all those gaps. That kind of sucks, but you can't leave it. You just can't leave it. You have to fix it. And look at it and see what you got and go through. And the best thing you can do is when you're using this technique is I go up to 800 and I'll look at my my multiple passes. And this is really wide here. So I know there's going to be a gap because that's really wide. That's way wider than a millimeter, which is about the width of thread. And I'll just start fixing it up a little bit. Fixing up where I kind of went off and didn't get it right. So like this one looks really nice. So you just go through and you fix everything up until you don't have the gaps anymore. And then you stitch. This is definitely when you have to stitch. Whoa, what happened here? Okay, you definitely have to stitch because you won't find this stuff, a lot of it, until you stitch like down here. Karen's absolutely right. There are times when you want gaps in the line work. And if that's the look you're going for, then you're good to go. In this instance, I didn't want any. So when you see the gaps, you want to fix them. But if you want the gaps and you're deliberately put them in there, make sure it's deliberate. It's like when you're trying to line something up perfectly straight and you want everything to be in a row horizontally. If I can't get it perfect, I'm going to put that row on an angle and offset them to make it really, really obvious that I did not intend for this to be straight. And if you intend for there to be gaps, then make sure that there are gaps. We'll make it look like an accident. Everything has to be done with deliberate intention. Now that I'm all done, I would take the artwork at this point and I would delete my artwork, draw a box, and group everything so that if I accidentally move anything, I'm moving the whole design at one time. I like texture. I don't like things to be the same, like all satin. I like texture, and I like to experiment with it and then see how it looks when I stitch it on the machine, because it looks very different. You know, it looks very, very different when you stitch it than when it's on the screen. If you haven't already figured that out, that is, you know, your best teacher is your sewing machine.
Hi, I'm Larry. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was recorded during a live webinar that Holly taught some of her students for digitizing. At this point, she's finished the lesson that she had planned to teach, and for the next 20 or 30 minutes probably, she'll go on and answer random questions from her students during the live webinar. I'm going to cut those off, and I'm going to take those and turn them into little video shorts to put here on our YouTube channel later. But for now, you've got this lesson, and if you enjoyed it, learned something, please give it a thumbs up. That helps our rankings with YouTube. Also, if you'd like a copy of the software that Holly's using so that you can digitize along with her, we can get you a 30-day trial that's fully functional if you just go to www.trygenerations.com. www.trygenerations.com, and we'll give you all the details there. Thanks for watching.